Good day, everyone. Thank you for attending our webinar for today. Today we will be going over the part 2 of our running code calculations using some of our CTC Express tools. For those of you that attended our webinar 2 weeks ago, we went over using Spreadsheet link and Schedule XL to run some building egress calculations and building occupancy calcs, along with calculating the number of plumbing fixtures required for the building based off the occupant load. Today, we're going to continue using some of our Express tools for this. Traditionally, as most of you know, we've always kind of done everything building calc-wise using Microsoft Excel or some other application that you have found over the years. But typically everything happened outside of Revit. So since we're putting all this information into our Revit models and we have areas, we have the walls, everything's kind of coming together on its own as we design things, we can utilize that information in our calculations, and we should be able to. You shouldn't have to reference everything manually and copy paste back and forth. So in today's webinar, we're going to go ahead and cover the occupant flow analyzer from the BIM project suite to run some additional building calcs. So, with today's webinar, you'll go ahead and learn how to use occupant flow analyzer to validate some of your calcs from Excel. So just to make sure that the programs are doing what they're supposed to and you have all the inputs correct, you want to go back and forth and verify that everything's working and you're getting the correct numbers until you're comfortable with it. Secondly, we're going to go ahead and use it to define our egress paths or exit paths, and what the shortest distance will be. And I'll show you how to do that, and how we can use it to determine the number of occupants per exit. So with that being said, we're just going to get right into it. So what I've got is a building model that many of you have probably seen before, so I apologize for the redundancy. And what we're going to do is I'm going to explain a little bit about some additional setup that goes along with this. So in our Revit models, we've got rooms placed across the board. And within those rooms, I've added a couple of different parameters. The first parameter that I've added is area per person, okay? And this is, that's effectively calculating what the occupant loads are gonna be. And then the second one is the occupancy. And this is gonna tell me the number of occupants that are allowed per the space. So within, once we're done with the calculations, the input's going to come back into here. And the reason, and I made it a shared parameter so that it can show up in my room tags, as you see here. So right now, nothing's populated. And to assist me with determining what the allowable square footages per person is, we have a couple of different room occupancy schedules created. So I have this room occupancy category key that allows me to define the function of the space and then the allowable square footage per person. Okay, so within my code plans here, and if you check the properties of the rooms, I've gone ahead and determined what some of these occupancy types or categories are supposed to be. So if if it doesn't have this defined, there isn't going to be an area per person in this case. So no calculations are going to be run, and I'll probably get a couple of errors. So with that said, I'm just going to go ahead and try running through it now. So on our CTC software tab, if you go to the BIM Project Suite panel, we have Occupant Flow Analyzer. And we have a series of different tabs to go through. The first thing we want to do is hit the occupant path settings. So within the rules of this, we got to make sure that we avoid the furniture, any casework or cabinetry, any other equipment, obviously walls. We want to make sure that we don't run through those things. So we can set these up as impassable objects. And then with other individual families, like something maybe grouped under generic models or specialty equipment, we can manually select those and have specific family types or specific instances of said types as objects that we deem as being impassable. You could set and select the entire category if you want. It's up to you. So this is just something that I ran the last time, and I can delete these at any time just by selecting and right-clicking it, hitting delete. Keep going down a little bit further, and then we can go ahead and define our critical path analysis options. So for the spatial element parameter, or which one we should be reading the occupant load from, I'm sorry. No, this is what the occupant load is going to be. Sorry. So it's going to put it. We're using the occupancy, in this case CTC property, right? And this is again to calculate the critical paths. So with this, if this value is blank, because it didn't have the ability to do the proper calcs on the other side, we can assume an occupant load of 1. And then down here below, for calculating the flow loads, we can go ahead and determine or define what the requirements are. So if you go check out the IBC, I think 2018, the current allowable, or the current factor is 0.0125, I believe. Could be wrong, but I think that's right. And then for the maximum flow, we can use the width parameter, and that's going to pull the width of the doors that are defined as being the exits, and make sure and use that in the calculations to make sure that we don't exceed the allowable number of people to exit that door. Okay. So and then as we jump around here, if we go to our occupant, well, we'll do this first. We go to the occupant load calcs tab. So this is where you set it up so that it can actually tell you the number of occupants for each space. So you kind of have to do this step first before you can define the critical paths. So I always set up the settings first, and then I jump to this occupant load calc tab where I can go ahead and define the load factor parameter, which is my area per person. And then if you have spreadsheet data that you want to pull from, you can go ahead and specify that spreadsheet and then map a parameter to it so that you get the same set of information here. Then below, we have our load results and distribution options. So we can go ahead and specify how we want to distribute the loads across the building and into the different spaces. I'm going to go ahead and just do a uniform distribution here, just to keep it simple. And it's going to go ahead and do it by level, so it's good. And then I'm going to round it up. Otherwise, it's going to give me the exact number to the, I don't even know how many decimal places it goes, but I think it goes like 6 decimal places. So I'm just going to round it up. And then it's going to go ahead and use the occupancy parameter here that we've created to store the results. And again, I'm basing this off of rooms. I can use areas if we have areas placed instead, or you can create a custom parameter that is a project parameter, so you wouldn't be able to use it inside of a tag. It's just a custom project parameter that you can use if you want to. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and hit calculate. And it's going to throw an error at me because some of the spatial elements don't have the appropriate information to run the calcs. And you can check this out if you want. So I've got rooms on all levels for the most part that don't have the proper calcs. And that's just because I haven't input what the usage is for these. So that's okay. And then it lets me know in the notes. And now it's done. So if I come back over here, I can see that the training room now has 27, our support area has 7, conference room has 14. My sales area didn't get anything. They're this little sales area, so I can go ahead, if I wanted to, grab that space, and yep, occupancy category had nothing, which means area per person is nothing. So if I were to go ahead and set that up, and if I just grab one, it'll grab it, area per person is defined, and then I can run this again, and now I've got a value, okay? So it goes pretty quick. If you notice that you have some errors like that, you can go back and address those, run the calcs again, make sure they're in good shape. Once you've done that, then you can open up the Excel file that you had originally used and make sure that you are getting the same results. So then the next step is to go ahead and calculate the critical occupant paths. Now, what's nice about this feature is I can do the entire building all at once, right? So I got a 4-story building here. I can calculate the exit, or do the exits and calculate the number of occupants per exit all at the same time. And I don't have to just basically set it and forget it kind of thing. And it doesn't take all that long either. Otherwise, what I can do is just do at a certain level if I want to. If you wanted to take a peek and see how things are going, I'm going to do everything because I want to show you kind of what this will turn out to look like, okay? And then you can go ahead and define the target exit objects. So in this case, I have a handful of doors selected here. And if I want to hit show on those, I can pull this off to the side. So I've got an exit here and here. It's up to you if you want to choose which door you want to choose in the vestibules. I got an exit here and here. And I guess technically I've got a 5th one here, but it's really just for one space. It's not really a full building exit. So I believe it's this one. And if I delete that and show them again, nope, I deleted the wrong one. So I'm just going to delete all of these and we're going to add them again. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do this. So you click this browse button and you just select the doors that you want to include as your exits, and then you hit this finish button up here. And those are the 4 doors. And now I can hit find path. So this is going to go ahead and go through the entire building. Some of the loads are going to be a little bit off because I didn't have all my spaces or all my rooms have the appropriate information calculated. So it's going to be a little off, but I'm still going to run through it anyway. So what it's doing now is it's processing all the information. It's actually creating kind of like a wire mesh throughout the building to do all the calcs for us. So that's what it's doing kind of right now. And then the next step will be to process the exits, which there are the 4 again. And then it's going to start to spit out the information and create the object. This particular message has to do with some objects that it doesn't understand. In one case, I've got an in place, or I got a CAD file loaded into a piece of, I think it's the wall or the family, or this furniture family, that it just doesn't understand. It's a 3D CAD object. It's not a 3D Revit object. So some of the stuff, depending on how what was created, isn't always going to work, but it's usually because it's got CAD information in it. And at least in this case, so I'm going to keep going. So it's calculating all the impassable elements now, and now it's putting everything together. And this is because I have no doorways in my elevators right now, or in that server room. So I think that's just okay. And now it's creating the shortest paths. And in a moment here, we're gonna have all kinds of good stuff. So, all right, here we go. So what we've got now is our report. So currently, it tells us what our capacities are, what the current load is based off the information that we've provided already, and what the critical distances are. So, which is pretty great, actually. So if you want to go through and check out your errors and warnings, we can do that here, but it's all stuff that we've already okayed. You can save this out if you want to save the report. and cross-reference it with something else, I'm going to go ahead and just hit OK, and let's go check out some of these paths that we've got. So here, this path that you see here, this odd shape, these are all the paths that are going through the front door, or this particular entrance here. So you can see that if you want to, you can actually select certain nodes and find out what it's going to be. So if I grab that node, it's saying at this point, we have 55 occupants coming through that point. And from there, we're getting them from the restrooms, we're getting from these 2 training rooms. So, and over here, we can grab, say, this point and find out that there's 11 coming through here. And those guys are coming from the pit and these offices. So you can start to see how this is all coming together, and you can start to get an idea of how many people are getting through all these points. If I tab to this one, come on, give me the point. Oh, it's not going to see it. There we go. I've got 103 coming out this door. So it's pretty powerful, and it did it pretty quickly. And what I wanted to show you is if we switch to a 3D view here and show you how this is working and show you what it actually did. Just to keep things simple, because I just want to show you what it's doing in the models. Okay. It actually, let me turn off the rest of this stuff too. It actually creates 3D lines, and these 3D lines are actually going down the stairs, right? So it's truly calculating the exit loads from the 4th floor all the way down. Okay, so it's doing full building analysis here. So which is something that you can't really do with the Autodesk plugin. So this is pretty special, I think. And it only took a few minutes. So let me get back to my code plan here. And let's see. And you can adjust this. So like it's kind of all over the place in some cases, right? You can actually tab to these nodes and you can move them around if you wanted to. What it calculated truly the shortest path, right? So but it's not necessarily the cleanest looking thing because it is truly trying to get the shortest path. You can make edits to these if you want to and pull these around to try to, in a way, straighten it out a little bit. But it's not giving you truly the shortest path anymore. So I just wanted to point that out to show you guys that it is possible to do. All right, I believe that is, for the most part, it. I do want to show you one quick other feature here. When there will be some instances where you'll get an error message that it can't run it for whatever reason. In some cases, it's you don't have an opening there yet, or there's right, like these elevators, for example. But maybe I want to go ahead and just check it real quick. Or another situation that you might run into is that it's an elevated room, and like on a stage, or there may be like a sound booth that is raised up a little bit. You do have the ability to manually pick points to do your calcs from. So just to show you how to do this, you can pick your start point, say here, pick your end point as being here, and my endpoint was not good. There we go. Now I can hit find path, and it will create that path for me. So if at any point the space wasn't able to be calculated for whatever reason, you can go ahead and make that happen. And it will process that information and put it in there. And if there's stairs it needs to go down, or if there's kind of a jump that it needs to hit, it will do that. So it just goes through the same exact process as before. Yep, keep going. Oh, I must have clicked on an object that's in the way there, like the desk, I bet. I bet that's what I did. Anyway, so it does work. Now, what I also wanted to show is if we, it's processing right now, I can't do anything. I was going to turn on some of the furniture just to show you guys that it is actually going around some of those items here. So unfortunately, I can't cancel that out just yet. So, and while that's cooking, I'm going to start going through some of the questions here that you guys have asked. Oops, whatever. Okay, so we've got a few questions. First question is, what do you recommend as a family type for ADA circles? So you can leave them as generic models if that's what they are, or whatever the family type is. You actually have the ability to, so if the category is added as an impassable object, it won't pass through it. Just ignore generic models. You leave them out of the list, and then which would make them passable then. So if it's not in this list, you can get around them just fine. Okay. Will a link to the webinars be posted? Yes, they will. They should be available later today, or I guess Friday, since we're not open tomorrow. So holiday. So yes, they will be available, and you'll be able to check them both out. And how do I exclude mechanical chases? I need them as rooms, but they have no occupants. Then just don't do anything with them. They're going to show up in the error and the warnings, or yeah, and they're just warnings. You can still get past them. So just go ahead and continue to place rooms there if you need to, but just ignore them. The calculations are going to work out just fine without those. As long as they don't have occupants in there, everything will work out just fine. Can you have it show the load factor in the box for plan reviewers? I'm assuming you mean inside of the area tag. So yes, if you built it into the tag. So that would require that you making the load factor a shared parameter, and then editing the tag family and just adding it to the tag. So yes, you could. Or you could make a custom family, another unique family that showed different information if you needed it to. So that's no big deal. All right. Can I combine nodes, especially by the exits? If there are several nodes within a foot or so, they should be combined to one node for actual total load at that pinch point. So like here, for example, I would imagine this is kind of the area, something like similar to what you're talking about. No, we can't combine them. I can make them look combined, but those nodes are they're two separate nodes, and they don't really converge until you hit the exit. So at this point, there's nothing we can really do about that, other than leave them separate. So if you wanted to, though, you could probably find a way. Well, hold on. I'm just trying to think of an idea. you could probably do something a little bit more unique and maybe find a way to determine that this is an exit point for different types of analysis that you want to run. But that would, again, not necessarily give you the most the right result every time, potentially, depending on how you did it. You'd have to ignore certain objects. You actually have the ability to, in the when you're doing the paths, you can be explicit with which elements that you want to run through. So you can maybe go through selected elements and grab certain spaces and kind of see what it would be like at a certain pinch point. But currently, as far as combining certain things to kind of come through this opening, for example, we don't have anything that's doing that for us yet. Do we have a door or stair tag that populates the occupants and required widths? No. Well, I take that back. Yes, we do. It's not in here. So I have made one that I showed in the webinar, the first webinar, part 1, that actually you could tag the door and it would tell you the number of occupants going out that door. And then there was another tag that showed that you would put near the stair that would show what the required and provided widths are supposed to be. So I went through that in the last webinar. I did not go through that in this one. So if you watch both parts, you'll see how that works. And actually, I just don't have that information pushing back into the door at this point. So in this particular example, part 1 did. So when those are both available later today or Friday, you'll be able to see all that stuff. Okay. That was all the questions that came through. If there are any additional questions, I am going to keep my eye out for them. But what I'm also going to do right now is show you kind of where you can go to get some of these tools. So if you go to our website, ctcsoftware.com, go to the products dropdown and hit BIM Project Suite. You have the ability to download the Project Suite free and it's a free trial for 14 days. And then after that, it'll just be kind of this, well, you'll have these tools. The light green tools you'll still be able to use. These are kind of our freebies. The dark green tools here are our paid tools. They're kind of the heavy hitters within the Project Suite. So Occflow Analyzer is part of the paid tools, but you can download a trial, good for 14 days, and take a look at it. We have some additional demo videos on our on our YouTube channel, and this video, as well as part 1, will also ultimately be on our YouTube channel here as well. So, yeah. We did get another question. How is this packaged for pricing? You'd have to go ahead and reach out to your sales rep, and depending on where you're located. If you're in Canada, go to SolidCAD. If you're in the States, you call ATG. If you're anywhere else in the world, just go ahead and contact CTC Software directly. Single seat price is $550 currently, but depending on your salesperson, there may be something else that they can do for you, depending on the number of users or whatever the case may be, number of products you get. So, but the base single seat price is $550. So, and that's a standalone license for that. Thank you for attending today, and I hope everyone has a wonderful weekend.